Hello, everyone. As I was saying, good afternoon, good morning, and good day. Welcome to our February OpenShift meetup. And first of all, thanks for joining us on your lunch break, may it be from home or at the office. And I'm Joseph. I will be your host for today. And with me, we have Mike and Andrew. Hey, guys, how's everyone doing? Say hi on the chat box, and we'll shout it out.
Hello.
So, hey, Mike, Andrew.
Good afternoon.
Alrighty. Before we
Hey,
begin, please note that this session is being recorded, and make sure to share it with your teams and to those who won't be able to make it today. We'll upload the link on the Meetup event page afterwards so everyone can enjoy it after the session. So, all right. Hey, boys, what's happening? Hang in there, all right? It's the first meetup of the year. So, what do you guys think about having your first meetup in February? Mike?
Hey, sorry, Joseph. The mute button is
All
not
right.
cooperating. So yeah, it's good to have the February meetup, the first meetup for 2021, and similar to what we did last year, we want to, and we are aiming to have a once a month meetup going
All right.
forward. So, and we already have some meetups scheduled for March and April. So watch out for that. We'll publish that as soon as possible, and it will be an interesting meetup. And I thought inviting our colleague and my friend William Henry to this meetup as the first meetup of the year would be awesome to talk about
Yep.
DevSecOps, because most
Yep.
of us all is always talking about security as part of the adoption journey towards containerization and cloud adoption.
And that sounds really great, Mike. And just to add, we're also welcome to prospective speakers out there. So if you want to share some of the stuff that you're working on, feel free to hit us up, message us privately, and we'll be happy to coordinate a speaking schedule with you. So it would be a great opportunity to share what you've been doing. Sharing is caring, remember? So as Mike alluded to, we're going to be talking about DevSecOps today. And in today's session, we're really stoked to have William Henry from Red Hat. So move the slide. William is our senior distinguished engineer, and he has over 30 years of experience developing distributed apps and architectures for both government and private industry. Hey, William, you there yet? Just
I'm
making
here.
sure you're
Can you
there.
hear me?
There you go. Hey, William, good day and welcome to the OpenShift meetup. I understand that we have probably New Zealand and Brisbane in the house, so good to have you. Are you in Colorado at the moment?
I am in the wild west of Colorado, and it just feels wrong that I'm not down there with you guys. This is
I
usually kind
know.
of time of year I like to be down there when it's cold here in Colorado and it's nice and cozy and warm down there.
That's good
And
timing,
I'm
eh?
missing. I'm not clocking up as many beers, nice good Australian and New Zealand beers as I like to do. People
Definitely, you
like
should
Steve
come down to
Ellison. Nice.
Come down to Wellington again for those craft beers that we have
Well,
in
as
here.
soon
So
as this all opens up, I need to start clocking in those Australia and New Zealand beers as soon as possible.
now it sounds
So,
great. Yep. So
so
just
anyway,
before I hand over
yeah,
the mic to you, William, I want to give the audience a bit of introduction of who you are, what you do with Red Hat, if that's all right.
yeah. So, you want to do that, or I'm doing that?
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that for you.
Okay,
So
great.
just for everyone's knowledge, as I was saying, William is our senior distinguished engineer, and he has over 30 years of experience across engineering, professional services, partner alliances, several management and director roles. And he has even been a company owner. So how is that? He has several years direct experience in telecommunications as well. I think, William, you joined Red Hat in 2008 in the office of the CTO, and you were focusing on emerging technologies and currently works on the product and technology portfolio architecture, which focus on open hybrid cloud, cloud native development, container technologies, and DevOps and DevSecOps strategies. So William is currently leading several global teams at Red Hat at the moment. And as he was saying earlier, he used to travel globally explaining emerging technologies and how they can bring value to your organization. So, and the best thing about it, I think you should be happy. I'm happy to share about that. William himself is a contributor to Docker, Podman, Builda, and other open source projects as well. So, yep, with that introduction, I'll hand over the mic to William Henry. Welcome.
Thank you, Joseph. Much appreciated. So let me start by saying I live in Colorado Springs, part of Colorado. And let me share my screen. I forgot to share my screen. Where is it? Share the screen, application window. Here we go. Can you see that? And let me know when you can see that.
Yes, we can see it, William.
You can see it. Yeah, yep. It's kind of this is kind of what it looks like some days here at the moment. Although it's blue skies today, we get a little bit hazy under the snow. This is not supposed to be some sort of Harry Potter type cave, but it is a very secretive place here. This is Cheyenne Mountain. Some of you are old enough to remember the movie. This is part of the city I live in. I think we're like, when it comes to nuclear attacks, we're like number 2 on the list of the U.S. And because this is the NORAD, North American Radar, whatever site. This is where they basically check out any sort of launches of missiles heading towards North America. Apart from the fact that it's built into the mountain with only 2 entrances, north and south, there are a whole bunch of other precautions that these people go through. And it's very interesting from a security perspective. So essentially, basically, someone considered lots of questions to like, what if the mountain doesn't secure us completely, right? So they have several 25-ton blast doors angled to deflect different harmful blasts. They have twisting tunnels to channel harmful air away from the insides, air currents that form purposeful over-pressurization so that any radioactive or bioparticles won't seep inside the complex. The granite mountain and the metal buildings inside metal buildings render harmful EMP impotent. The springs, all the buildings inside this are actually built on, there's 8-story buildings inside this that are built on springs to withstand a direct hit or earthquakes. The pipes in here can bend. There's full sort of superstores, like if you're familiar with a Walmart or something like that, massive superstores for all the essential replacement parts. There's a hospital. There's lakes in here for cisterns. You can actually take a boat out on a lake underneath the mountain. Diesel fuel for power generators, complex shielding, all sorts of stuff. It's also a place where they do a lot of cyber defense operations, so identify and freeze attempts to infiltrate their cyber systems. And they have a culture that prepares them for working underground for as long as it takes and leaving their family behind outside. So basically, the idea is you could live in here for like 30 years or more and come out later after a global or a nuclear winter. So in 2018, it reopened after major refurbishment. So this isn't sort of a relic of the Cold War. It's still used today and is a very important part of defense. But why I bring it up is when we look at that, there's a whole bunch of things and moving parts that go on that whether it's pipes or wiring or the building materials or whatever it might be to make sure that it's secure. And all the organizations understand that basically the technology is not static and it's not slow moving, so they always have to keep these things up to date, right? So secure DevOps practices, also known as DevSecOps, is critical for enterprises that must rapidly develop and deploy digital innovations. The ability to quickly create, deploy, and iterate high-quality software will be a core business requirement by 2023. You're probably already seeing this right now, right? I mean, you're acutely aware of the problems that we have, and it's not really that hard to see why. The way I look at it is we have kind of this perfect storm of cloud innovation technologies, open source technologies, things like cloud native. You've got mobile devices. You've got an insatiable appetite by consumers of whether it's your banking applications or your hotel applications. People want features and all this sort of stuff for their apps to get better and better and better. And therefore, you've got developers who are under pressure to continuously improve and make better the offerings that the consumers are doing. And so now we have this DevOps role, which is kind of help us automate and improve the process of being able to deliver that. But how do you keep track of everything, right? How can you adopt needed new technology securely in order to maintain and grow your business? And then how can you automate CI/CD practices, including in the underlying infrastructure and supply chain while maintaining business operations? So those are the biggest risks that we have today. It's like we're basically under pressure from our own ingenuity and creativeness and ability to make things better, in that now we have even greater pressure to secure it, right? So tackling security channels with DevSecOps is all about, we try to categorize them by looking at across all of the different ways it affects us into these sort of 4 types of categories. You want to have improved speed and efficiency. You want to reduce the human errors and risks. You want consistency and repeatability. And you also want to have better collaboration, which is really vitally important when it comes to DevOps and specifically security within that. And what we're trying to move to is, when I started this in this industry, there was a lot of manual processes, and you were building a lot of snowflake type applications that, if you tweaked it just the right way and had all the configuration right and everything pointing the right way, everything will work. And what people are moving towards now is more of an anti-fragility type of model, where it's like, look, we don't mind if things break because we know how to automatically fix them, or we know how to change them. In fact, anti-fragility is good. And so how do you get that? It's a culture change. It's about introducing things like automation, continuous delivery process, advanced deployment techniques, self-service and auto-scaling. These are all the things that you want to do and have sort of everything as code, so that it doesn't involve a whole lot of human manual interference to try to get things up and going, right? And then you move to a situation where you're running at DevOps at scale, where you're doing microservices, serverless, API first, cloud native, AI, ML, all those cool new apps that you want to be doing in a very, very fast and efficient, but also secure manner, right? So you're moving from the old world of everything tightly configured to a world where it's like, hey, I trust my processes and automation enough that things aren't fragile anymore, but also that they're also secure. So how do you do it? Well, we can't tell you that DevSecOps is easy, but we can tell you that each individual step can be, as long as you keep taking the steps. You learn to walk, then you learn to run, right? So you start simple, implement a CI system like Jenkins or Tekton or whatever it is you're doing, or using things like Ansible. Once that's done, add a new stage to your CI process to do static code analysis with some tool out there. And that tool will take some days to do, right? And then once you have those things done, then you spread your knowledge to other teams, and everyone is improved, and you keep adding steps and stages as time permits, and everyone benefits from the gains of each incremental step, right? And since we're automating these things into our CI system, it doesn't require daily work to continue using it. It frees up time to consider and mitigate new security threats which you haven't been able to address before. So every journey is different for different people, right? But almost all, I don't know what that is. Use the beep, something over there in my room here. But basically for development projects, that would be a CI system with an eye towards continuous delivery in the future. For network systems, it's using a configuration management tool like Ansible and writing roles, which are tested and validated. The tools which you integrate vary depending on the organization, of course, your risk tolerance, right? So let's talk a little bit more about how you get there. This is kind of a diagram that we adopted from the old risk management paradigm that was around during the, let me just undo the pointer piece here out of my screen. So the old sort of risk management model of the sort of circular ongoing risk assessment model looked similar to this. And how we've adapted it here is basically you identify security requirements and governance models, you design it in from the start, and you deploy to trusted platforms with enhanced security capabilities. So you're not just building secure code, but you're deploying to secure environments. Then you automate systems for security and compliance. You then revise and update, remediate as the landscape changes, and then that feeds back into the next cycle of your identifying security requirements and governance models. And then that's all kind of over, that's all sitting around your security policies and your processes and procedures, which themselves are evolving as you become more savvy, right? This diagram is an update to an old one some of you might have seen. I'm not a big fan of this version of it because of this part in here, but I'll explain it. Essentially, first of all, you want a culture and process. I do love the overall slide. It's just this piece here I think gets lost, so I'll focus that a little bit on that in a minute. So you have this overall cultural process. I'm going to go into this in a big way later. Most organizations, when they think DevOps and DevSecOps, they think here. They think about the development problem. They think about the code, build, test, release, and deploy. And that is vital, and we're going to touch on that in a while. Excuse me. But you also have to remember your supply chain. We'll talk a little bit about that, which is all about where you're getting your images and other artifacts from and what dependencies you have and all that kind of stuff. That's super important. How that moves through your environment, how you're managing and doing that sort of infrastructure as code part of that environment for your ops. So you have your code, remember you're going to also build your images, or someone is building the images. Maybe it's Red Hat, maybe it's you're building your container images. You have to validate those pieces. By the way, here what I mean is you might be building a JBoss image that's going to be used as part of the DevOps process, where you're going to add the developer is going to add their own code. You might be building out a specific version of an Nginx image so that your developer can write their JavaScript code, etc. Right? And then you have to validate, change management, and deploy. And then, of course, you're doing the whole operate and monitor part of this to make sure that the overall processes are working, right? So it's not just this area. It's also about your supply chain and your ops across all these different environments, culture that makes it all work and the communication to be good, and then the operations and monitor to make sure that what you're doing is actually being effective. So when we're looking at this and we're moving to DevSecOps, looking at the challenges, we're asking questions like, under the improved speed and efficiency, we're asking, how do we select the right tools and automation processes that don't slow us down, don't slow down the development or delay the release dates? How do we integrate and automate security and compliance testing seamlessly so that CI/CD toolchain environments are never interrupted or slowed, right? So that's the whole speed and efficiency. What about human errors and risk? How do we integrate automated security throughout all phases of the DevOps lifecycle to reduce errors? How do we scan for all the known vulnerabilities and configurations across all the code? We have a lot of that knowledge. We should be turning that on and making sure that some tool is automatically running that every time, right? Consistency and reliability or repeatability. Even if we do what we've done under the improved speed and efficiency and under the reduced human errors and risk, even if we do that once, how do we make sure we're doing it continuously, right? So It's not just about running a scan on an image. It's about making sure that that's automated, right? How do I keep the scanning up to date? So if I'm doing scanning, but I haven't kept all of my scanning tools up to date, and they don't know all about the CVEs, the critical vulnerability events that are out there, then I'm missing certain pieces. How do we keep track of evolving environments and third-party software? Critical. This is about the supply chain. We'll get into that in a moment. And then there's the whole better collaboration. How do we adopt to the new continuous integration processes for security? How do we create and maintain the open culture so that we can have people communicating and not afraid to communicate concerns or risks that they're seeing? And how do we get the IT people with the right skills and mindset needed? This is a big issue too. It's all very well where we say, hey, we're going to adopt this policy, but if you're not hiring the right people with that mindset, who are looking at risk, who are willing to take risk, but do it within the framework of your policies and your procedures and help to advance those and grow those, then it's people are finding it very hard, right, to do that. So let's look at this whole automation process first. Okay, when I talk about this, I don't want to the intent here is not to push Red Hat technologies or products, but in order to help you understand the problems that you're going to be facing as you look through this, it's helpful for me to refer to a technology or a product as an example of how Red Hat is trying to solve the problem. In other words, the problem is there. You're going to have to understand that the problem is there. And how you tackle that problem is really up to you. I'm just showing you how Red Hat is doing it. So automation, it's, as you know, if you've read any of the sort of DevOps books, it's kind of key and foundational to the whole DevOps piece, but also for DevSecOps, right? So automation basically helps improve both security and compliance by helping you reduce that risk associated with the human error. So it allows you to bake security in from the start and allows you to do DevSecOps successfully. Automation, it allows for everything as code, infrastructure, security, and compliance as code. This is important to do since it gives you that whole repeatability, the ability to share, right? Because now you've it documented in code, the ability to verify it and the ability to audit it, which are all key to security and compliance. It also allows you to do that continuous monitoring and continuous security with the controlled automated remediations, and we'll hit on that in a while too. So, the big statement here is automate anything you can, as this reduces human error associated with many of the breaches that people see in the industry, right? So, automate, automate, automate. So it's becoming more important to have a consistent enterprise automation strategy. That's not just with the applications. It also applies to your infrastructure operations and also to your security operations centers and how you're monitoring and keeping things going. Right? So one of the advantages we're seeing around this is I'm using Ansible Playbook here, but a common automation language across the organization and lifecycle, right? So you can imagine that the dev people and the test people might have their own tools and scripts and all that good stuff. Or you can imagine the security people deciding they're using a specific tool. But what if from development all the way to production, you were using common language for doing your automation, right? So that the dev test people and the QA and the operations, outside of the other tools that are in your pipeline, if they're using, so you're going to have built-in capabilities within platforms like OpenShift, the Kubernetes, Red Hat's Kubernetes distribution. You're going to have tools within that. But where they're not doing, where there are gaps in the automation around this, it's important. And by the way, OpenShift itself uses Ansible quite a bit for a lot of its automation or most of its automation. Therefore, it's really useful to have a common language, whatever that might be, for you, so that when people in dev are looking at the automation of people over in change management or others, everybody understands what it looks like. Everybody understands the tool. So it can just help reduce the amount of, multilingual missed in translation problems that people can. And of course, you also want it kind of up and down the stack as well, whether it's all the way up into your databases or your VMs, all the way down to things like how you automate into your public or private cloud or any of your networking technologies or storage capabilities as well, right? So it means that as well as having the from dev to prod, you're also doing it from top to bottom within your stack. Other things you can do is basically Ansible security automation, what we use, and what you would have to use it by using your common automation language, whether that's Ansible or something else. You want to be able to integrate and interoperate across security technologies that most enterprises implement, right? The goal is to help security response and operations teams with a more efficient, streamlined way to automate their various processes for identification and response to every security event. So you use that common language, if you like, to stitch together all the different tools that are already used, right? So whether it's networking pieces or your firewalls or whatever it might be, all the way up to how you might actually deploy a Kubernetes cluster, etc. You kind of want to have this common language that stitches all that together. So that it can also be extended out to things like privacy access management and security information and event management systems, or your intrusion detection and intrusion prevention systems, your enterprise firewalls. There's a whole way of using something like Ansible automation or whatever technology you're using, that common language to basically automate across those environments. What we want to do is we want to automate security operation, right? And the way we can do that is basically by doing investigation enrichment, or threat hunting, or incident response. Each of those has their own way of using that common language, something like Ansible, to do it. So security automation, for example, on the investment enrichment enables the programmatic manipulation of logs so that users can send edge firewall logs to log correlation for analysis facilities like your security information and event management system, or basically bump the verbosity level of the logs that you're getting, so that you're getting more information as part of that investigation. For threat hunting, you are using that to do analysis where you're doing security analysis and updating the tools to identify newly released cyber attacks or malware. And you want to be able to use things that support signature manipulation to enable the automatic update of things like intrusion detection and prevention systems, for example, with signatures coming from a security bulletin, and then correlation and searches and events automation on the SIEM so that analysts can create new alerts from actions and changes and operated on other security devices. And of course, for incident response, you want the tool, whatever you're using, to help security teams to automate those last mile actions which actually stop a malicious event. And that would be, blocking IPs or URLs on a firewall, or blocking a set of credentials on an access management system, right? So there's automation there. Now, within the supply chain, how are we doing on time? We're doing good. So on the supply chain part, what I would say here is, whether you like it or not, just like Red Hat, you have a supply chain, right? And you might have a supply chain problem, right? So think of Red Hat. Red Hat has hundreds of thousands of developers all across the world, all contributing to open source projects in the upstream community, right? We have things like the Red Hat Bugzilla package review to have a look at those, what's coming down from those upstream systems. We have to track those packages for release into something like Fedora. And then some packages are selected for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We do static code analysis on those. We check the compiler flags to make sure that they're set for hardening and security. We do extensive QE on the testing per release. All the packages are digitally signed. We secure the distribution, and then we do the continuous security updates, and then we back up again in the cycle. So we have our own supply chain that we have to manage, right? Question is what does your supply chain look like for your organization? How are you taking in third-party products like Red Hat? How do you trust them? Things like JavaScript are even probably the scariest thing on the planet when you think of what developers are doing out there. Where are they getting it? How are they analyzing it? What about containers? Where are you getting those containers? Are you getting them from Docker Hub or some other place, or are you getting them from some well-trusted and signed container registry? So things like Red Hat has a universal base image for our containers as well, which include trusted libraries, package format, core utilities, security response, patching, performance response, technical support. We do all that with our universal base images. So again, where are you getting your images from? This isn't meant to scare you. This is meant to have you be diligent about these things. Ask yourself these questions. Where are you getting them? How are you going to verify the authenticity of these and security and compliance of these images that you're getting, whether they're container images or whether they're other images? We do things, and this might be something that you do as well within your organization, is we have a container sort of catalog where we keep track of things, and if something goes out of, if we believe a CVE has affected something, we make sure that its health index is changed because it's not as fresh and secure as it used to be. And so you can check that as part of what you're getting from us, but you can also automate and make sure that, and things like OpenShift, for example, do this. If they see that a container is not fresh anymore, it will turn around and say, hey, let me do an automated process whereby I start swapping out the old container with the new version that has had the patches or whatever applied to it, right? And of course, then you have the whole operator hub and certified operators. Operators are a hugely powerful way of you reducing any sort of security risks within deployment of well-known systems or applications, either from third parties or for yourselves, so that you can remove any sort of threats of badly deployed or insecurely deployed. The idea that, oh, I deployed my app last time, I'll deploy it again this time, but maybe you don't do a step correctly. Well, by creating an operator for that application, you can make sure that all of the steps in setting that up are automated correctly and you didn't miss something. So have a look at Operator and have a look at Operator Hub to see what operators are out there, because they can reduce your risk in terms of deployment time, and there's also certification around it upon Operator Hub. The next thing is the operations themselves, and this is all about securing the infrastructure. By the way, there's a really great link down there, the Red Hat red.ht/security labs. There's a lab you can do up there that will teach you all the steps around vulnerability and compliance scanning, host hardening, enforcing automated compliance, and automated patching, right? These are all examples of ways you can start by baby steps of securing your deployment infrastructure. And if you want, you can hit that lab that will teach you about these different steps, okay? And there's a whole bunch of information up there on how to scale your security and compliance. This is more around cloud.redhat.com. This is really important too. So one of the things we're doing at Red Hat to help our customers is to do a whole bunch of automated security scanning for them. So by using something like insights, and again, this is something that you can, as a company, we're seeing a lot of other organizations do this for themselves with things like what they're calling AIML for compliance and security. So they're building their own AIML AI and machine learning models for analyzing their own systems to see if there's something out of sync, to see if they have a failure or an anomaly in their system, so that they can turn around and shut the system down, or and then migrate it, or take the applications of it and destroy the VM or whatever it might be. So we do this as well. With Insights, your infrastructure can check in through something like satellite anonymously, and it can download a whole bunch of information for you to say, hey, this cluster of machines is out of compliance, they have a whole bunch of CVEs on it, etc. And it can actually automate the update and fix of that using Ansible playbooks and things like that too. So that's something you can look at. So here's an example where it's showing, there's a database performance decreases with transparent huge pages is enabled, or it'll tell you that there's problems within a particular system, and it'll help you figure out whether you want to actually automate that or not, right? I'm going through this because I know you want me to get to probably more of the developer stuff. This is very important. This is something, as I said, you could try to build yourselves, but if you want to, you can have a Red Hat will kind of do this for you, and it'll show what systems are out of compliance, how to, it'll automate, it'll do as much as possible from all the knowledge we've built up over the last 30 years of managing Linux systems and stuff like that, to turn around and say, hey, we can apply these fixes right now and do it for you, right? So something to look at. The way that does is, this is from the portfolio architecture I'm working with, have done, is we can use things like out on site. You can use smart management, which is things like Red Hat Satellite or something like that. Red Hat Satellite with Ansible Runner and Cloud Connector. We also have automation orchestration, which is we're using around Ansible, the Ansible automation platform. Then you have your infrastructure, and you might have your hybrid cloud infrastructure, which are OpenShift hosts, which might be CoreOS. And then back here, we have our insights up at cloud.redhat.com. And what can happen then is your data gets, the anonymous data from your host will get sent to the smart management. That gets uploaded over a secure connection to your Insights account that you have up here on the Insights platform. That's all done securely. And then it will run a whole bunch of Insights services, provide remediation plan, generate remediation playbooks, so that when smart management checks in, it can bring these down. And those playbooks then can be rolled out through Ansible Tower on a per cluster. So instead of letting smart management do it, which might try to do it across the whole organization, you can have it set up for different roles, for different people to say, oh, Mike can update today, but William is doing a major demo and stuff this week, so we're not going to do it until next Friday. And then we log in and roll out our playbooks on our infrastructure next Friday, for example, right? So there's that. So now we'll talk a little bit more about, so OpenShift itself has a whole bunch of security built in for doing things like providing a secure container platform for you. And we've been doing a lot of work around that, around hardening and doing the setting up automation around operation, deployment. Some of the deployment needs to be worked on around what I would call the disconnected environments. We need to do a little bit more work there, because Red Hat, our OpenShift 4 really does a lot of dependencies around having an internet connection to do it. But what we would like to do is a little bit more around making sure we can provide the same user experience in disconnected environments too, and we've been working on that. And of course, we have these multi-cluster management across some of the work we got with ACM, which allows us to do set centrally enforce policies for security and applications across multiple clusters, right? And quickly visualize detailed auditing on the configuration of apps across the cluster and do compliance policy and audit checks. And there's a whole new group that's been a distinguished engineering working group that's been set up to start looking at how we can improve this even more. But it's pretty powerful stuff from a whole risk and governance perspective, right? So on the development side, you can see when we look at development, we think about building our applications. We talk about, code quality scanning, image building, image scanning, testing, production deployment. And of course, within your testing, you have different test environments there as well. Well, we've done a lot of work with different customers, including the Department of Homeland Security and others, who've helped us look at this and sort of map different products and key points of security that we need to worry about when we're doing that. So, for example, on the IDE, we have the application analysis to see what the developer's doing. Are they doing good code practices? But there's also identity management, like who is this developer and are they allowed to be programming and checking code into things like the source code management. And then when we get into source code management, we want to do more application analysis. We want to also, on the build side, we want to be able to do build analysis. By the way, if they're using third-party tools and libraries, we also want to be making sure that those pieces, those libraries, those binaries, whatever it might be that they're pulling down, that we're doing analysis there, and that it's compliant, etc. And then there's more compliance when we are pushing that into the container registry. Who's pushing things into the registry? Are they allowed to push things into the registry? How do we keep the health of those things up to date? That's what I was talking about before around the health index. Who's allowed to deploy those containers within a different environment? Who's allowed to have read access to them, etc. And then, of course, we want to do container orchestration. And that's all about, right, you have to set up ingress rules for the networking part. You have data access controls. You have different networking within your application in terms of who's allowed to talk to storage and what parts of what containers within your app are not allowed to talk to storage. All that stuff has to be done within this. And then we point it out to or within the cluster, you have a whole bunch of other pieces as well. And so what we tend to do is we work with a whole bunch of different partners in this area that help us solve these. So a lot of our customers will be using things like Sysdig, or they might be using things like Sync or Sneak. And so we work with those and make sure that they have operators that they can build and deploy and keep up to date within our OpenShift cluster, for example. So again, this is something that if you were doing this on your own, you'd have to consider, how do I pull these things? How do I consume them? How do I know that they're signed? Because this is your supply chain. And these particular products then will help you figure out, oh, I don't need to know about all of the security scanning. I'm going to use Synopsys for that, or I'm going to use StackRox for that, etc. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different products within these categories that fit in to what we were talking about earlier. And of course, Red Hat has just acquired StackRox. This slide is brand new. I just basically robbed some images from the StackRox website. So basically, they provide us a whole bunch of a beautiful platform that allows us to do a whole bunch of different vulnerability management and compliance, et cetera, across our Kubernetes distribution, OpenShift. So it's, again, it enhances it. That doesn't mean that we will not continue to be working with those strategic partners that we mentioned originally. But it does mean that we have an out-of-a-box solution for some of our customers. But if people are using and are comfortable with those partners we mentioned already, then remember they're still very important partners for us, and we will continue to support their efforts within our environment. Okay, so I'm looking at the time, and the only last thing I want to talk about is the culture part. We can help you understand that if you want to do. I don't want to get into this too much. I will let Mike and Joseph and Andrew and others talk to you a little bit about how Red Hat can help you with our innovation labs or our consultants or our training and certification in this place. I don't want to get into that, but it is important that you remember we talked about the people. We talked not just about the culture, but we talked about the problem with getting, people with the right skills and the right mindset. Well, this is a way we can help you with your organizations to switch, to help switch their mindset, to get them into that and make it less daunting. Because when you look at the breadth and depth of the security landscape, it can be daunting. But what we want to say is we can help you guys come at it and take those baby steps and understand it a little bit more and kind of take a lot of the scariness away from it, right? And an example of that is what we were doing with the Department of Homeland Security here in the U.S. with DevSecOps. And one of the cool things about what they did with that was, I don't have it here. They essentially have a whole website. Is there a link there? I don't see it. They have a GitHub site which you can actually get all that information from. Okay, so what next? There's a bunch of links here. Guide to security, continuous security, understanding IT security up at Red Hat. You can read that. There's a whole bunch of stuff we have on container security. We have a really wonderful What is DevSecOps site there that you can see. And then, of course, there's Mike's brilliant article on how to successfully adopt DevSecOps up on the opensource.com site, which I'm sure he'll be doing a little bit more. Well, I plugged it for him, right? So he wouldn't have to. Okay. So thank you. And I'm going to now stop for questions and answers. And I think that the rest of the team is going to be helping me out here too.
William, actually, there is no questions.
Wow. Either I bored everybody to death or I answered everything before it could be even.
Yeah, but everybody's saying.
There is one comment though, William. Byron was saying that when you were discussing about the supply chain security, he was saying, oh yeah, some vendors make it very hard to secure your supply chain security, right? Because they lack available automation. And he mentioned specific products as well on his comments. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I understand that. The one that I think is the one that I kind of fear the most, and I've heard, is the whole JavaScript supply chain, right? Mm-hmm. Because it seems to be, and I know there are companies out there, I forget the name of the one that's out in California, that's trying to provide a more curated versions of the JavaScript, but there's a whole lot of JavaScript being written by well-intentioned people that are dependent on libraries that are potentially evil. So be very careful where you're getting your JavaScript and how you're consuming it, right? Make sure you're getting your libraries and stuff like that from reputable places, or that you're scanning the crap out of them, right? And that you're noticing any changes, like flagging any changes and diving into it potentially manually. Figure out what changed from the last time, because I was happy with this last month. And it's a bit like, when you sign up for an app on your smartphone and you're moving along, and then they do something and you're just like, shit, I love this app. Like WhatsApp, right? They changed their privacy policy. And I've been using that for years, and I had to delete it off my phone, and I'm trying to get everybody to move over to things like Telegram or Signal or whatever. And it's hard because you kind of feel like you're locked in, that you're using it. So you have to be very careful with those libraries. Make sure that you're comfortable with the fact that supply chain for those things isn't going to be interrupted, right, by the fact. I remember hearing one story where there was a guy who had this little application that everybody was using and nobody even knew they were using it. But somebody in the community pissed him off and he pulled it. And it took down the freaking internet. Do you remember that thing? It was some sort of like calendar manipulation thing or something like that. And the whole freaking internet went screwy because this guy somebody pissed him off and he pulled this thing, and nobody realized that half the freaking internet was dependent on this stupid little library that was really, really useful. So it wasn't that it was malicious code, it was that there was a dependency on this and somebody pissed a guy off and he yanked it from upstream and everybody's environment went cocky.
All right. We have follow-up questions, William. First of all, Mandy wants to say hi, and he says you should come back to.
I will definitely. I'm looking as soon as we're back in the air. I want to be back down there, Mandy. So I'm definitely interested in getting back down, and I'm relying on people like you guys to drag me down there.
And you do have a follow-up question, Mike. Are you able to read it for me? For some
I
reason,
am. It says, "How do you think the public cloud makes companies very lax? They think, oh, the cloud provider does all of that." Don't worry. I will say the public clouds are doing a fantastic job in many ways, right? But there are issues where things like Ansible can help you out. A lot of people, as you said, Mandy, that people get lax. They think it's all handled for me. But if you look at the disclaimers on the public clouds, they basically tell you, hey, here you go. Here's all the features. Go hang yourself, right? And people do. People go out there and they don't have their S3 buckets correctly tied up and secure, and people are dumping crappy JavaScripts into their S3 buckets and stuff like that. So it really is up to you as an individual, if you're using public cloud providers or any cloud providers, that you are making sure your stuff. And by the way, it's even with a private cloud. If you're on a private cloud, and you running a sensitive application, you need to make sure that you're tying things down right and that you have a consistent way of making sure you're tying things down right. Okay, so obviously things like OpenShift can help in that because we tie everything down by kind of default, right? Just like we love to have set enforce 1. That pisses people off, right? But we want to have SE Linux turn on by default because we want to be secure. We do similar things with OpenShift, and we're always learning and trying to make it better. But in the absence of having that, you still need to have automation. Things like Ansible can help you write playbooks that will just automatically go out and check things and turn them all on for you. So great question, Mandy. Thanks, and looking forward to getting back down there.
Thanks for that, William. Speaking of automated fixes, Byron is also asking for OpenShift. Do you know of any examples similar to the CVS operator for automating fixes for images, that are highlighted there?
I don't know that off the top of my head. That's a good one to come back with. Andrew or Mike, do you know the answer to that one?
I know some example, but this is about the security operator on more. So I am aware of some examples. I can share it to Byron, the GitHub itself.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Interesting question from Gary. Is Red Hat forced to use IBM Cloud?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
We don't. In fact, I'm still trying to find people who are using it yet. No, that's not true. We are using it internally and for some projects, but a lot of people are still using AWS. And some people are using Azure, but I think most people, we are not being forced to use IBM Cloud at all. In fact, I'm kind of hoping that we get to use it some more because I would love for certain things like some of the more government related environments. I think we could be doing a lot better. IBM has a good FedRAMP type of program for making sure that their environments are secure. So I would love to see Red Hat host some of the services that we have up on cloud.redhat.com inside a FedRAMP sort of environment where we could get much better. We could serve our federal government users much more powerfully if we could do that, right?
Yep, and Wayne is just saying you're really a legend, and he hopes to see you in Sydney again sometime, probably for a few beers. And he was just asking if he can get an evaluation version of StackRox.
Yeah, that's the thing about the StackRox. So even though we've been even internally, the way we've had to talk about it for the last several weeks and months and stuff has been in very, very, first of all, a lot of us didn't even know it was happening because it was that secret, as normal, like any acquisition. And secondly, when it was announced, it was basically, hey, you cannot talk about any sort of collaboration efforts that are not kind of partnery until the acquisition goes through. And as the acquisition only went through either yesterday or the day before, I think it's 2 days for you guys. It's only now that everybody's jumping in and trying to figure that out. So I would assume you're going to be hearing more about that, Wayne, very, very soon. But right now, that's all been. I mean, they were on. Paul had his call today, Paul Cormier, and they were on that call, as a welcome thing. And I'm sure they have some triggers they can push, get things out there, but I'm not aware of that yet.
Thanks to that. And I think Theo helped us out on that broken internet thing that you were talking about. He said it's, I think, kick or left pad. Yeah, well, he was right. So, yeah, that's the one. So sweet. I think we don't have any more questions. Do you have any parting words, William and Andrew and Michael, before I send off a few announcements to our participants today?
No, I think.
Can everybody tell me, was this useful? Put in a +1 or a -1 or a 0 for okay. I don't mind hearing the hard news. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys good and useful information so I get invited back, right? I want to
definitely live in action.
Yeah, this is actually a very good session, William, and we have around 30 plus attendees, so that's a really good sign that and the topic that you really shared to us was really important, especially in this side of the world where people are thinking about incorporating security in the modern application development. So this is perfect timing.
Great.
I'd echo that as well. I mean, when I talk to people, it's about velocity. They want to go faster. They want to get stuff done as fast as they can. And looking at the complexity of the stacks that people are using, I am a little concerned that, because you never go backwards, right? And then check the work afterwards. And so this is very timely conversation. So
I think you hit it there, Andrew. What I was saying early on is like there's this perfect storm where it's like we've been so blessed with so much stuff that it's like, crap, how do we organize it all? And that's where you kind of have to automate. There's no ifs or buts, and you have to make sure that you can trust your supply chain. If you can't do that, you're in trouble. So I will leave Mike on charge of my my drinking list out for the Wellington area. Andrew, you're on the Brisbane, so when I do come out, make sure that these guys know.
We are all Wellington.
What's that?
That's okay.
But for sure, a lot of
in Sydney.
For sure, a lot of the Brisbane guys are listening. I know they are on the list of participants, so someone will definitely take care of that for you, William, when you go to Brisbane.
Excellent.
Just want to plug before we close. There is the next meetup that we're going to do, and this is the title for this is Demystifying GitOps. And we managed to invite Christian Hernandez, one of our senior technical marketing manager, and he's really into GitOps, and I'm sure this is going to be a really good meetup as well. So watch out for that. I sent the link that will happen on March 25, same time.
Alrighty, thanks for the mic, and of course, thank you very much, William. It's really we're really stoked to have you on our meetup, and hope to hear from you again in the future. So maybe live session, perhaps. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, that's what I want. Thank you all. Real pleasure. Always a pleasure. Take care.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
All right, thanks everyone. Yep, and if anyone has a question, just reach out to me, Mike, and Andrew, and we'll be happy to help you out with your queries and whatnot. Thanks everyone. Have a good week ahead. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.